Hello, everyone. This is Wrestling Fan Talk here. So, what a Smackdown from Madison Square Garden. This was all about the bloodline, more specifically, acknowledging a new tribal chief, a new head of the table, in Solo Sikoa. So, Solo Sikoa, Tama Tonga, and Tonga Loa arrive at Madison Square Garden. And they get out of their vehicle and they're approached by Paul Heyman, who asks Solo where Jacob Fatu was, and Solo Sikoa said he took his advice and sent him away due to being too dangerous. So Solo Sikoa and the Tongans, along with Paul Heyman, start to walk to the ring. And it's really cool with that new production technique they have, where they show them in the back walking up through Gorilla out to the entrance ramp to the ring. It's a very cool production technique. And we've seen more Gorilla positions since they started doing this than we have arguably since the company started. But they come out walking towards the ring, and they get a little bit down a ways to the ramp, and then we see Cody Rhodes, Kevin Owens, and Randy Orton arriving in tow. And they come out, and there's a big brawl. Big, massive brawl. And the show gets started off hot. And we know we've got a six-man tag. We know we've got the Tongans and Solo Sikoa versus Randy Orton, Kevin Owens, and Cody Rhodes at Money in the Bank. We know we've got that. And they're really hyping up this six-man, and Cody, Randy Orton, and Kevin Owens are hot. Out comes Nick Aldis with security. And there's a fight, and Madison Square Garden is eating it up. Fast forward to the end of the show. Out comes Solo Sikoa with the rest of the bloodline and Paul Heyman in tow. And immediately, Solo Sikoa introduces his new enforcer, the Samoan Werewolf, the new enforcer of the bloodline, Jacob Fatu, with music that is low-key really fire, as the kids say today. That was a great entrance song they made for him. And he's in great shape, and he's coming out intense. And not Solo Sikoa. Paul Heyman is giving Solo Sikoa an evil mug, an evil stare. Sort of a, how dare you lie to me? How could you do this? And out comes Jacob Fatu, who gets in the ring. And Solo Sikoa takes the mic and tells Madison Square Garden to acknowledge him. And Paul Heyman is affronted, almost offended by this. And one by one, each member of the bloodline comes and acknowledges Solo Sikoa. Tama Tonga, Tonga Loa, followed by Jacob Fatu. And then we get to the moment of truth. Paul Heyman. And Paul Heyman, they pull out the tribal necklace with the red petals that Roman Reigns would often wear for big events. And once again, Paul Heyman is offended. He's affronted by this. He can't believe it. And he's got this look in his eye, like he hasn't slept in weeks, and the stress is just finally built up in him. And he hasn't shaved, and Paul Heyman is playing this part perfectly. You actually feel sorry for Paul Heyman in this. He is an actual babyface here. And he looks at Solo Sikoa, and he says, "You are not my tribal chief. You are not my tribal chief." And Solo Sikoa loses his mind. Samoan Spike, followed by Jacob Fatu during a diving headbutt. Then they drag Paul Heyman out. They give him a triple power bomb through the table. And Paul Heyman is destroyed on Smackdown. And the show goes off the air with the four Samoans giving the finger in the air, letting everyone know they're the ones. And that is how you build nuclear heat for this faction. That is how you build heat for Solo Sikoa. You've also just turned Roman Reigns into arguably the biggest babyface in the company without Roman Reigns having to lift a finger. You almost have to be worried when he comes back how much he's going to overshadow Cody Rhodes, because you've now officially ran that risk. If you didn't before, you did now. And boy, oh boy, what a storyline we have now. You know when Roman Reigns' music hits, the head of the table's music hits, it's going to be the biggest pop of the year, especially when you hear Paul Heyman's voice with it. And it's going to be amazing, because you're going to have Jimmy Uso and Jey Uso align themselves with Roman, and I think you're eventually going to have Sami Zayn align himself with them. It's quite obvious we're going to get War Games at Survivor Series with the Bloodline. That's obviously being built up to, but all the intricacies of this story. You know, the rumors are out and about now. It's all but official that apparently we're getting Solo Sikoa versus Cody Rhodes at SummerSlam for the WWE Championship. Do you go ahead and just pull the trigger and have Cody Rhodes defeat, or not Cody Rhodes, do you have Solo Sikoa defeat Cody Rhodes at SummerSlam? I think you consider it. If you want to make him this ultra top heel that's just this monster who's power hungry, who's drunk with power, who's just in this position and he's just reveling in it, then yeah, you give him the title. That's, I think, how you do this. I think Solo Sikoa should leave with the title at SummerSlam. I'm not necessarily certain he will. I think that would muck things up for future storyline, for future booking. Especially if you're building towards Cody Rhodes versus The Rock for the title at WrestleMania 41. Then maybe you don't put the title on Solo. But if you want Solo to be the top monster heel, you put it on Solo. There are so many ways this thing could go. Another interesting point about all this is Solo destroyed the Wise Man. The new bloodline destroyed Paul Heyman, which means there is now an opening for a new Wise Man character to be brought in to WWE to serve as Solo Sikoa's Wise Man. Will they pull the trigger and make someone play that character? There's only three options I could see for that. Option one is Rikishi. He's the father of Solo Sikoa, and the father of Jimmy and Jey Uso. They're all three brothers, obviously. But since it's sort of suspected that Solo Sikoa will be feuding with the Usos when this bloodline story really gets cooking, Rikishi serving as the Wise Man could sort of be a conflict of interest. But still plausible. The second option we have would be Haku himself, the father of Tama Tonga and Tonga Loa. I think he could be very interesting. He would fit. He's never been known as a great mouthpiece, but he isn't known as the most dangerous man in wrestling history. Everyone's always said Haku is, in a shoot fight, the most toughest. So, that's an option. Like I said, he's never been known as a mouthpiece, but things change. He is a veteran of the business. He's been in it for decades and decades. He might be a logical position, a choice to serve as that position. And then there's a third option, The Rock. Now, he would I can't ever see him being an on-screen character and on a week-to-week basis, week after week, year over year, like Paul Heyman's been. So it's hard to see him in that spot. But he could be the Wise Man in Solo Sikoa's ear, controlling the group from the shadows, the one who's been pulling the strings this whole time. A lot of people are suspecting that he is. He could be that Wise Man in Solo's ear that's guiding him along this way, that's taking control of this bloodline. Even if he's not on air as an on-screen character week over week, you can still bring him in once or twice to establish him in that role, and then we know he's in that role. That's another option. This is going to be a fascinating story to watch because we have an idea of where it's going, but we don't know the way they're going to get there. You know, you got to get The Rock versus Cody at WrestleMania 41. They've planted the seeds of that. They've already they're too far along that story to change it, in my opinion. Fans are expecting it now. And it's a story that fans are going to want to see played out. You're going to have Roman come back as this super over mega babyface. But you know you got one more Cody and Roman match. You had Roman versus Cody, WrestleMania 39. You had the second match, Roman versus Cody, obviously, WrestleMania 40. There's one more match there. There is a trilogy match. And it's going to sell a lot of tickets and make them a lot of money. So, who's going to be the heel and who's going to be the face in that dynamic? Then obviously you got Solo and Roman. The new bloodline versus the OG bloodline. A lot of moving parts. And a lot of different ways this story could go. But I think Money in the Bank is really going to be interesting. I think the bloodline takes it. I do predict that Solo, Tama, and Tonga Loa, Tama Tonga, and Solo Sikoa defeat Cody Rhodes, Randy Orton, and Kevin Owens with help from Jacob Fatu. Whether or not we see Roman return that night is anyone's guess. And then you got to consider Money in the Bank. Who's going to win that? I think whoever wins Money in the Bank is going to be more of a Raw situation than a SmackDown situation, storyline-wise. So I don't necessarily think that comes into play, but it could. Triple H has been cooking lately. But that's all for this one, guys. Wrestling Fan Talk out.